You're watching ABC 36 News Now. Good Day, Kentucky. With Doug High, Lisa High, and meteorologist Dylan Godet.
Hey friends, welcome back in. Youth vaping has become an increasing issue over the years, and thankfully today we have some tips on how to help teens who are going through these kinds of things.
And here to give us those tips today is Dr. Alex Elswick. He's the assistant professor at UK. Thank you so much for coming in, Dr. Elswick.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so vaping, it's so prominent. I mean, we see it everywhere. How prevalent is it here in Kentucky?
It does seem like it's all over the place, doesn't it?
Sure.
Well, just for context, over the last 50 or 75 years, rates of cigarette smoking have been declining and declining. So that's really been a positive.
Good.
But it's been somewhat replaced by vapes in the last 10 or 15 years. A little bit of positive, though, from 2018 to 2021, we saw a decrease from 23% to 17% in past 30-day youth vaping. So a little bit of a silver lining, a bright spot there.
Okay, that is good.
I wonder, what are we attributing that to, do you think?
A lot of different things. Some people have suggested that during COVID, when everyone expected that rates of substance use would go up, that actually because kids were stuck inside and they were being monitored by their parents, that it was harder for them to, right? It turns out that could be effective.
Yeah, absolutely. So how harmful is vaping for people?
So the most honest answer is we really don't know yet, because that's a relatively recent innovation and we don't have all the research, but we do have research on some of the chemical compounds that are commonly found in e-cigarettes, and they've been associated with things like respiratory disease, cardiovascular disease, and even cancer.
And a lot of folks are trying to tie this together into sort of a gateway drug corridor there. Are we on board with this?
I think that's interesting, yes, because so often we frame cannabis as the gateway drug, but statistically, far and away, youth are most likely to start with nicotine and specifically with vapes. Actually, pretty recently, vapes surpassed alcohol as the most commonly used substance by youth. And so in some ways, it kind of fits the definition of the gateway into other substances.
All right.
Wow.
So what can we do to prevent youth from starting to vape or vaping?
Frontline strategies here.
Frontline strategies, always have a conversation. You have to have a conversation with your own kids that levels expectations, that talks about the harms. But one of the other things that I really encourage parents to do is to check and see if their schools are implementing evidence-based prevention curricula. We have a lot of those at our disposal that are really strong and have a really good research base, and so be good to see that in your child's school.
Okay. While we have you here, how do we pivot for an adult conversation about vaping versus teens?
It's similar, it's somewhat different because there's some research that would suggest that vaping is less harmful than combustible cigarettes. So if you're an adult who was previously a smoker, using e-cigarettes may be less harmful, but that's not the same thing as saying that e-cigarettes are not harmful, right?
Yeah.
It's a very, very big chasm between those two things.
Absolutely. So where can people find out more information if they are looking out for their teens, their loved ones that may be vaping that they want to help?
If you have a loved one who's using nicotine or tobacco or vaping right now, you can call 1-800-QUIT-NOW, and it's the state's resource line, freely available resources, things like nicotine replacement, things like support and technical assistance, great resources.
Okay, well, education's key. Education for folks on the other side of the conversation to make sure that we're informed, because as we were discussing before we came on, I mean, just seeing it is intimidating for those of us who aren't familiar with it. So really having, being armed with that good information is key to that fight, I would think.
That's it.
Well, we appreciate your info. This is great. And come back and see us too.
I think I'll
cannot have this conversation enough.
Thank you, Dr. Elswick.
Good to see you. We're back with more. Stick around.